Hi, everybody, and welcome to Kremlin File. And we are welcoming Karine Orlova. Hello, Karine.
Hi guys. You can call me Karina.
Okay,
It's
okay,
more
that's
familiar.
great.
Yeah, I have a
Okay,
backstory that it might be relevant today. I'll tell you more about it in the end of our program.
Okay, great. I just want to remind everyone that in season 1 of Kremlin File, Karina was here with us, a journalist and correspondent, and she talked with us about the Russian dissidents just before, if everybody remembers, the September 2021.
It was the Duma elections.
That's right, the Duma elections. Perfect, exactly. So today we're catching up, okay, with Karina on what is happening now inside Russia.
Well, luckily and happily, I'm outside of Russia now and has been for the past 7 years. So when the war started, I went on CNN. I was invited to, talk about Echo of Moscow, of course, because it was shut down too. And the host, the anchor, asked me about, she asked me something like, how do Russian people get information? They're like completely isolated now with Echo being shut down. And I said to her back then, and it was quite shocking, and that was a very unpopular opinion, which has changed. But I said it back then that, well, I have to tell you something that is very sad, but that is true. On February 24th, just the very first day of Russia starting bombing Ukraine, there were people. We all saw those pictures of Russians running to the ATMs, standing in lines for hours to withdraw cash, to withdraw foreign currency, to get some foreign currency. Then they started, hoarding up in grocery stores to buy up groceries. And the question is, so how the hell did they know back then on February 24th when there were no sanctions yet? That's very important because, of course, within the following week, the West has introduced insane sanctions in a good way, but insane because unprecedented, right? But nobody could even imagine that the scale would be that. So, but how come those Russians knew that they need to go to the ATM to withdraw cash and to get some foreign currency? The only way they could know is that they knew that the war started, that Russia started something so horrible that it would be punished appropriately. And I remember, a look of like a surprised look in the eyes of the host. But she then, told me during the commercial pause that it's actually it makes sense, right? The ATM doesn't lie, she said, and that's true. And so what my point is to cut a long story short, that I am absolutely sure that those polls that come out of, yes, the Kremlin-owned, the state-owned pollsters, independent pollsters too, like Maxim Katz, and he's an independent opposition, politician, and they ran a poll with a friend of, like, a colleague of his, and another poll, a CNN poll, and there was another European organization that ran a poll. They all show the same, and the support has been growing. Daniel Granin, I don't know if you know him. He's a Soviet, a dissident writer. So someone posted a part of his writing, and the story was that he went to visit the Buchenwald concentration camp in Germany near Weimar, one of the worst concentration camps, where the Nazi burned Jewish people, like literally. And he said that he noticed that the crematoriums were placed really, really close to a town nearby, like just outside this town, like really close. And he then realized that it was impossible not to see the smoke coming out of these crematoriums. And then when he went to a grocery store and asked for a glass of water, he asked the lady that was there serving the water if, how was it, back then to be near the concentration camp. And she said, oh no, we didn't see anything. And he then said, well, but there was the fume coming out. It was impossible to not see the fume. You know what she said? She said, but we looked the other way. We didn't see anything. We looked the other way. And then Daniel Grenin writes, but then I realized to be able to look the other way, one had to know which way not to look. Do you know what I'm saying? So this is just to say what's going on in Russia. To not know what's going on in Ukraine, you have to deliberately not, choose not to read that part of news. That part of news.
Yeah.
That's right.
Karina,
Sorry.
No.
No, what it's like, and of course, it goes without saying that on state TV, the propagandist TV channels or media, they don't tell you about the economic hardship. So you won't know that, you need to buy foreign currency, that the ruble is going down and stuff. So you have to seek that information somewhere else.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is very true. That's a very good point.
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask you because, another thing, looking at the polls, the latest Levada Center polls and stuff like that, and also you're telling me the independents, Putin's actual approval rate has increased. No, and that's what they're saying. Do you find that or not?
Yeah, I'm absolutely sure. It is. It is true. And I also think that, do you remember those notorious 86% to 14? So when Putin got his in 2012, right, when he was reelected, he got his 86% and they were like 14%. And so since then, we've been saying, this 86% of the Putin's majority. And nobody actually believed that that number was true. And, if you listen to politicians, of course it's their job, to say that no, Putin does not have massive support. And I myself did not believe that the Russians were so truly inoculated, with this doctrine of Putin, with this fascism. I also thought that, they support Putin because it fits their lifestyle, it suits them, it's comfortable, it's, to their advantage. But they don't actually believe it, or they don't actually, feel anything. But it's not true. Well, I was wrong. And yes, I was wrong, and I should have known better, because if you look at, what Russians are doing in Ukraine today is horrible. It is atrocity, right? But if you look at the Russian interior news for the past, decades, okay, let's take one decade. Those tortures in Russian prisons is unimaginable, right? Saying on a daily basis, every prison has a torture system established inside. And if you look at, news, just regular news, a drunk mother killed her daughter, or killed two daughters, or a lover of a Russian mother with 3 children killed the children and then the mother, or killed the children and the mother chose not to, report him to the police, or something some horrible things, or teenagers killing people just for $2. So it is crazy, but the news have been there forever. And what's the Russians are all in Ukraine, they're not doing something extraordinary by their own standards. They only do what they know, what they know. It's, killing, burglaring, right? Burglary, theft. Looting. And rape, rape, of course. Rape is big part of Russian culture. So so what's going on is horrible, but only to a Western, or to a stranger's eye, not to a Russian eye. We have to be, honest about it. That's what Russia is. And so do you know what the feedback that I receive nowadays today from, people who know me and who read me on my Telegram channel or, on Facebook, they say, well, I thought before that you were exaggerating, that you were like a little bit too much. And people sometimes they would, call me a radical or like, oh, Karina, this is too much. But now they tell me, we like realize that you've underestimated what's going on. You were like, too soft on Russians.
Yeah.
Sorry. I mean, I have no I don't feel for the Russian people.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No loyalty.
No.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And it's something, like the West and even Western media, like for the past, since these atrocities have been coming out, they've been trying to solely put it on Putin, his regime.
Yeah.
You can, there is no military doctrine that tells these soldiers to walk into towns, to rape 3-year-old kids, to execute families, to burn women alive after raping them. That's not a military doctrine. That's coming from something inside of you. So the problem is much bigger than Putin, much bigger than his regime. And, and if we eventually do get rid of Putin, before the West starts dealing with Russia, they really have to understand what is happening there and that inner side, because, I mean, what we're seeing, no military doctrine was signed to say, go and rape 3-year-old kids, 5-year-old kids. There is none. This is coming naturally, naturally from people who are coming in. And I mean, I don't even understand, who raised this, how they were raised. I mean, the country is so indoctrinated that I don't know.
You're absolutely right.
So we see that, the West has placed unprecedented sanctions on Russia, probably stronger right now than Iran and North Korea combined. Do you think that will have any kind of effect on the Russian population? Because now it is their home, it is their jobs they're losing. And I mean, I heard the minister of labor, she basically told Russians who were being laid off, like, oh, you're being liberated, because they're liberating Russians from work. Who obviously are going to be without a salary. Do you think now that it is reaching in every single person's household, whether it be the mortgage going up, whether it be salaries being cut, or soon they'll probably not be able to be even paid like we saw during COVID? Do you think that with a combination of being isolated and now, basically, Putin has really created the Russophobia, because right now they're trapped in the country, not allowed to leave, and if they do, the anger from the West, especially for those supporting this regime, is going to be, a lot. So what do you think on that front? You think that'll have any kind of...
that I'm sure of, because the economic sanctions that have been put on Russia are unprecedented, and they will affect prices on everything, but first and foremost, produce, like food, right? Groceries. The prices have already gone up, right? Not as much because, it's not enough time has passed. So, but it will go up, of course. We know that. And if you guys look at the number of, Russia, the majority of Russians are not middle class. They're lower, lowest middle class and poor. A year ago, that was the official statistics. 22 million of Russians out of 146 million lived below the poverty line. Can you imagine? Below the poverty line. 22 million people of Russia, official statistics. I think it's 60% are lower middle class. So people with really, really small salaries, and their structure, their consumer structure, consumer spending structure, is so that they, even today, before the war and the sanctions, they spend 70% of their money on food, on groceries. To them, even a 50% increase in prices is already crucial. Just imagine what happens when the prices go up, 3 times and more. So that is very important. Yes, Russian people are also, like a notion, Russian people are very resilient. They're not used to any quality food. What they eat is just a shame. Trust me, I volunteered at a homeless shelter in Washington, D.C., and homeless people in DC at that shelter are served better food than regular Russian eats every day. They do. Russian people, like, they're used to it, right? So it has nothing to do with America, because in America, like this spread between good, like, quality groceries and not quality groceries is huge, right? But even if you are like lower middle class, you can afford chicken, you can afford even steaks. There are different steaks, right? At $4 or at $40, but you have a range. Right. No such thing in Russia.
Yeah.
So meat is for like the rich. The poor, they don't eat that. But and everything will go up, right? Even the like beloved sugar, which I don't understand honestly. Yeah.
And they had a shortage
Well,
of it too.
that
I mean, there
seems
were
to have
shelves
been
empty.
created artificially because of this crazy demand. Because Russians heard, oh, like reds, like somewhere they knew what's going on. They know what Russia is doing in Ukraine, and they anticipate, the prices to go up. So yeah, so that I think will have a very strong effect. And I don't know, I don't really understand why Putin keeps doing what he is doing. He's probably is, like, as I've been saying, he's insane, like clinically insane. Some people disagree with me and say like he's not clinically insane, but maybe, if a doctor sees him, he might not detect schizophrenia. But Putin has been informationally is isolated for years, so he lives in his artificially created reality, which of course inevitably leads to some sort of psychiatric disorder, which I think is the case for Putin. Because it's like you can live in today's world without knowing what's going on, and he makes his decision based on the wrong information, which I actually, a little self-promotion, sorry. So 5 years ago, and my editor praised me for that, 5 years ago I wrote a piece on the American interest, where I used to be their contributing writer. The magazine doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately, but back then I wrote like a separate piece. It's called Inside Putin's Echo Chamber, and I detailed, with like concrete examples, I detailed how Putin is misinformed and he doesn't know what's going on. He didn't know back then, and of course it's worsened since then. So to me, that was, I know that a lot of Americans were actually amazed by that. They had no idea. I did, because Putin doesn't use any piece of technology. He doesn't use a cell phone or something, because he thinks it's traceable. Any piece of software that's installed on your iPhone or Android can be, hacked, and he doesn't use that. He really read his news on paper. Yeah. And if he needs, to be shown a movie or something, like a film, they would use whatever, like a disk or a flash card, SD card, whatever. Yeah, which that's that. Wow. There are reports to that, and Putin honestly believes that the internet is a CIA project. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe that's why. That's so.
Yeah.
That's what's going to bury Putin, I think, in the end, because he doesn't know what's going on. He has no idea how his economy works. He really thinks, so reported, that what's the word for it, Olga? Help me out. Импортозамещение, like import replacement. Like, there was this program they started in 2014 when the first sanctions came out, that, we're going to replace all the imports with our own production, our own Russian production. Well, it turns out that, if they needed to produce a tea, like cattle, they would produce it in Russia, but all the elements and parts of the yes,
out.
they were
Yeah.
imported. That's what
Yeah.
happened.
They came from someplace
That's
else.
right. So if you take
Yeah.
that out, those pieces out, the Russian economy will collapse. And that, like Gleb Pavlovsky has a great formula to that. That Russian system is a system that uses global elements wired in. And if you take them out, it will just, collapse. And
It
yeah,
collapses. Yeah. 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 Actually,
That's actually the difference I keep making between this and the Soviet Union, because with the Soviet Union, everything was domestic. Everything, they were cut off from the West, whereas here, as much as they continue to still paint the West as the main enemy and the biggest threat ever, like in Soviet days, their money is here, their parts to everything is bought from the West and from just globally. Like
that's
there's
right.
nothing they produce.
That's right. No, they do
domestically
produce something,
at
but
all.
it's not
Yeah.
a domestic,
Nothing.
like only, place of production. It's like, when you go to, if you ever notice, if you ever go to Trader Joe's,
assembly.
if you shop for, take a look at the back of the pine nuts. So sometimes it says product of China. Sometimes it says product of Russia. Well, guess what? Like there's no pine trees in China. Of course, any, like every single kernel of a pine nut that says Chinese comes from Russia. So the Chinese buy, take for free from Russia, and they sell it to the United States. Sometimes they use, like the United States uses the direct Russia product. So, but yes, it's packed in America, but it's not an American product, right? It's only packed here. But nobody is making a big deal out of it. Nobody says, "Oh, well, those are our American pine nuts." So Putin, I believe, he honestly doesn't know what's going on because, well, he's not a very smart person, let's be clear. And he's never been. He's not a very well-read person. His brain just, he wasn't born with a strong brain, with a strong intellect. He's not an intellectual. Yeah, that's right. And he's always, lied to, and so it's he's in a very poor intellectual condition, I think. So he doesn't know what's going on, but it is going on, and there's I don't know. They had some hopes for China, and I think that surprisingly, people in the Far East, in Russia's Far East, will be better off than those in the European part of the country, because in the Far East, China is already there. There's already Chinese products and Chinese groceries, Chinese everything. The Chinese are already there, but they're not in Moscow. I've never seen even a Chinese grocery store in Moscow, which is a very normal thing. In America, in every big city, you can find an Indian grocery store, Korean. In DC, we have big Korean, Chinese, whatever. In Russia, no such thing ever existed. I know Indian, there was one Indian store that was more like, not even a store or something, not a grocery, not a supermarket. So the Russian people will starve, and that's what's going to drive them, maybe. But I'm not sure if there's going to be, wide protests or something. But what I do know is that when the polls start showing that the Russian people don't support Putin anymore, which means it doesn't even require those millions to pour into the streets. It only requires to not, to have this paper that says they are not supportive. Then the elites or the KGBists, I still call them the KGBists because that's who they are, they can do their coup d'etat. And what I think will happen, I'm 100% sure a democratic regime is not going to replace Putin's regime. I don't even think that we'll see a Putin, the regime change. We'll see the head of this regime change, of course. Putin he'll go, that's for sure. It's just a matter of, I don't know, months, not even years. My estimate, I don't know, I might be wrong. But someone will replace him, but it's going to be another bad person. Yeah, same thing. The person who it depends on who exactly replaces him. If it's the FSB, like a guy from the FSB, they are not interested in this war because they've been the Krusha, the mafia who controls and gets a cut from everything inside Russia, all the financial flows and stuff. So when it's all cut, they are not interested.
Uh-oh. Our next partner has a product I use literally every day. I started taking Athletic Greens because, who hasn't put on COVID pounds? And it's become part of my morning routine.
It's one scoop in the water and I shake it up and I start my day that way. And I'm feeling so much better. I sleep better.
It has all the vitamins, 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source, superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens. They send you the whole kit with the bottle, so you don't have to do anything except pour one scoop into the bottle they provide, add water, and shake it up.
To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you free 1 year supply of immunosupporting vitamin D and 5 travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/Kremlin File. And again, that's athleticgreens.com/Kremlin File to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
So let's try to talk about FSB again without kicking you out.
So no, my point is, I mean, I think if an FSB guy replaces Putin, they will try to end the war and they will try to make up with the West somehow, like at least look negotiable or something. I'm not sure if the West is going to buy that. I
hope not. I hope not.
And then maybe after.
Yeah, because even Karina, everybody put so much into Medvedev. Everybody, oh, look at him. Oh, he was a president. Look at him today. The statements coming out are
but he wasn't like that. Okay?
It's like
he wasn't like that. And I listened. Okay, who said that? Okay, it was Sergei Pugachev. You cannot trust that guy too much, but he might know something. So he said that Medvedev actually once told his people at in the middle of the night, he's circled that don't worry, Putin is not coming back, and that was the beginning of Medvedev's end. Which Medvedev didn't used to be what he is now, and I think that Putin really tried to destroy him. I think that he saw what Medvedev did at this United Security Council vote on Libya. It was a betrayal, and I think that Medvedev's direction, his friendship with Obama, and his clear direction to this like normal Europeanized country was a betrayal. And I think that Putin, because he's a very vindictive man, and I think that he punished Medvedev. I'm not sure how, but Medvedev is humiliated, and he's humiliated himself, probably trying to buy the forgiveness of Putin. So I wouldn't listen, much into what he has to say now, because he's just a, pathetic man, a drunk. He tried. You cannot, let's give him a credit. He tried. He failed. He should have, resisted, but he tried. There were some elites were behind Medvedev, and they really, so like a lot of people didn't want Putin to come back. That's for sure. And Medvedev had that support, but then, so that's an interesting question. So Medvedev was the president. He could give an order, a presidential order. He could fire Putin. He could get him arrested or something. Yeah. Okay, but again, he probably was scared that he will. Maybe there was, in among his security, his like presidential security, the FSO, were some guys placed there by Putin. Right. Who could any minute poison him or whatever. Right. Putin is capable of anything. So, yeah. So now Medvedev is just a joke, but he tried.
Okay. He tried. Yeah.
Actually, I don't hate him that much. Yeah. I don't hate him. Yeah. I don't despise him that much. It's just, you can literally, you can take seriously what he has to say now. It's just like, who's that?
Yeah, okay. Actually, talking about the FSB and about like the Bellingcat, right? Because you had mentioned Christo. Have you been following the new developments of the information that was found about
Yeah, I follow
Nemtsov?
everything.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I probably can you talk about that a little bit and
yeah,
tell us
sure.
about the latest?
Yeah, yeah. What Krista said and what Bellingcat uncovered is, again, is not surprising. Of course, the FSB followed Nemtsov, but I think that the revelation was that it was not the political, like a regular following. It was just this particular squad within the FSB that is responsible for killing and stuff.
Boris Nemtsov was a very, very, very loved
That's right.
opposition
Mm-hmm.
figure against Putin. I mean, he united a lot of people. He he was just he was a very enigmatic figure, and you know, Putin couldn't handle it. And he actually had more popularity than
Yes.
Navalny. I think he
Wow.
grabbed a lot more people and different groups of people,
Yeah.
building like, having that support than Navalny. And I mean, and then that's it. And Putin murdered him. And
Yeah. Which again, who are you going to surprise with the fact that the FSB is doing killings? Oh, wow. Yes, that's what they do for a living, by the way.
And at the same time, he was working on the Magnitsky Act, and he was also working on releasing a
Yeah.
report because he was very against Russia's invasion and annexation of
Crimea.
Crimea and Ukraine. He was against the war. He would organize protests against the war. So
Right.
he was working on
Okay.
releasing a report on it. And then, between the Magnitsky Act and his very vocal opposition to Russia's invasion, he was murdered in front of the Kremlin, basically executed, like
And
Karine
I
said.
think that,
Executed.
the method that they chose, this execution, was the mafia style, because Putin, that's a very well-known fact, that he sees, like he probably saw Nemtsov as a traitor, even though because Nemtsov used to work for the government. He used to be in the late 90s. He used to be the prime minister, right? Vice prime minister, right? And he wanted, like,
Yeah, vice.
well, actually, Yeltsin was thinking about Nemtsov as his next prime minister. And yeah,
Okay.
it's a famous episode when Nemtsov showed up at the airport when some foreign guy, like a leader, was coming, and Nemtsov went there to meet him, and he wore just like linen, I guess, white linen pants, and this idiotic drunk Yeltsin was very pissed off by the fact that Nemtsov dares show up, wearing those inappropriate pants. By the way, for the record.
He couldn't even stand. Yeltsin couldn't even stand on a
That's
stage
right.
without
Yeah, no,
tumbling
that's
over
I was
from
just gonna
out.
don't
say,
you dare
coming
wear,
from Yeltsin, that's pretty.
linen
That's
pants.
Linen
that's pretty
pants.
rich.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
it
exactly.
was in the movie, in the
Exactly.
documentary about Boris Nemtsov. It's very, it's a very well known fact. So Boris Nemtsov was part of the government, but he was not, part of a Putin team or something. He couldn't be
Right.
like
No.
a traitor, possibly, because he's always been on the other side ideologically. But Putin probably, saw that as that, and I don't know. Probably we all
As a
are
threat.
traitors, right? So, for instance, I
Right.
advocate for sanctions against Russia, of course, heavily. Am I a traitor? But do you guys remember when Nemtsov was murdered? There was this active measure. What's called активное мероприятие? Active measure, yeah, an active measure by the FSB, when people who are unfortunately are being considered as opposition, like Ksenia Sobchak.
Who is
Ksenia
she?
Sobchak.
Yeah, who is she?
She's the daughter. She's the daughter of Anatoly Sobchak, who used to be the St. Petersburg mayor. And Putin used to work for Sobchak. And that's when Putin was the head of this department. That was the Department of Foreign Affairs of St. Petersburg. And then, Putin oversaw
Where he robbed money.
the largest narco traffic from Kali, the Colombian cartel, through St. Petersburg seaport to the rest of Russia. Putin oversaw that. And then Anatoly Sobchak suddenly died in Paris, right?
From what I remember, he had dinner with Putin. Of course, who always have food poisoning.
Oh, that's right.
And then
That's
Putin sent
right.
him to campaign.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
To those
yes.
towns. And then he was campaigning, and then he died. And then
Yeah. So she was part of this cover-up operation when she would go out and say out loud, oh, Putin was mad. That, when he found out that Nemtsov was murdered, he was mad. So it was an active measure, a cover-up, to cover up that he was behind it. Because, of course, if he was mad, he didn't know and he didn't want it, of course. And Sobchak was part of that. I mean, this woman...
I can't understand
exactly,
that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Well, he killed...
Okay.
Like, he killed her father, but he gave her mother a seat at the Senate, Soviet Federation, which is in Sobchak, has been doing great.
And that was like one of the first, poisonings right around the time. And then we got into the, I don't remember. No, the apartment building bombings happened right after that.
No, Sobchak died before
the
Putin
apartment building bombings. And then there was another one from St. Petersburg. Roman Topalov? No, Roman.
Tsepov.
Tsepov. He was a huge mob figure in St. Petersburg, and one day in 2003, he decided to give an interview to a local article saying, "Oh yeah, he provided bodyguard protection, to Putin." And then soon after, he went to have lunch with his FSB friends that he's known forever, and died. And that was probably the first polonium poisoning that we knew of, before Litvinenko.
Okay. No, that's right.
That was before Litvinenko.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, we just don't have proof. But I mean, I think if Sobchak's body, this type of poisoning doesn't leave any trace. That's the beauty of it. That's why they use it so often. Yeah. But I mean, that's absolutely Putin style, and
they love poison.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Unless they want to, send a clear message. That's when they use something really showing off, because they could have poisoned Boris Nemtsov easily. Why not? Boris was very very open,
they murdered him.
Person. Yeah, it was an execution. It was an execution. So yeah, I mean, I'm not part of Russia. I still, unfortunately, am a Russian citizen. I would love to burn my a Russian passport, but I can't do that because I don't have any other citizenship, and I can't be a person without citizenship, right? So, but once I get one, I'll burn it. I don't want to have anything to do with Russia. And a funny story. So, my last name is Orlova. It's a very Russian-sounding last name, but my father is Armenian. That's why there is a confusion with this name because, my name is also Armenian. It's Karine, which was also very, very Armenian-sounding name. And because the Russians have always been very racist, towards Armenians, Georgians, they would call them Chernozhopi, which is an equivalent to the N-word. And, and I was ashamed of being half Armenian, and I was ashamed of my father. And, I was just all constantly ashamed of being who I am. And so that's why I tried to hide my real name, and that's why I wanted people to call me Karina. Karina is more or less Russian. You cannot, it's not Armenian at least. And as to my last name, so my mother back in 1985, she chose to give me her last name because she thought that I will be, easier off or better off with a Russian last name, just, for that particular reason of racism. So, yeah.
Okay.
Guess what? Now I'd better change my name to my Armenian name. Now I'd rather have my father's last name.
You'd rather have that.
To not
Exactly.
sound
Yeah.
Russian. Yeah.
Yeah, where do you see this going? Like, to wrap up, where do you see this going? What do you see? Because there is still a percentage of Russians, who were born towards the end of the Soviet Union or right at the turn of the Soviet Union, and honestly don't understand, one, this repression, two, the loss of PlayStation and and like iPhones that's going to eventually, right now they have their existing ones, but the loss of Western products that they're so used to having despite trashing the West. Where do you see it going between Putin, who, is committing atrocities on the world stage to the point that, I mean, nobody can ignore, with his generals and his thugs in Ukraine, the sanctions, the Western companies pulling out, and, and this very strict repression of now creating, because I mean, in the Soviet Union, it was a very paranoid society.
That's right.
Like, you like couldn't you always you didn't know who to trust, not your family member, not your neighbor, no one. And this is where it's heading right back. I mean, it's been going this way, but now we see it really escalating as Putin like moves to cleanse Russia out of Russians, as he's cleansing Ukrainians out of in Ukraine. So where do you see this all heading?
I don't know, guys. Honestly, I'm very pessimistic on that because I'm 36. I was born in 1985, so I was not a pioneer or a Komsomol or something. And I graduated law school of, at that time, the most liberal and the most progressive universities in Russia, the Higher School of Economics, Vishka. And when the war broke, I decided to check on my former classmates, what they had to say about it. They were all lawyers. Okay, so lawyers, like I presumed, to like know better than anybody else because
Sure.
I mean, it's the law, it's the basis. Silence, like complete silence.
Wow.
Not a person spoke, spoke up against it. And well, a lot of them, of course, work for the government. Some work for big law firms, but this generation is lost. So, like, don't hope for those people because it's been almost 15 years since we graduated, and these people have their lives established, and they're okay. 15 years is enough to get used to be what it requires to succeed in Russia, and to maybe get indoctrinated, or to maybe become such a like a person who says, I don't see it. I never saw the smoke. I was looking the other way.
The other way.
That's who they are. So that lost. A lot of young people, honestly, I don't know, but I know there are a lot of bad and rotten people among them as well. Those people who go work for the FSB or go to the FSB Academy. There is one, by the way. And I don't know. And when you see those video posts, like street talk, a lot of young people would say the same, that we're gonna survive on our own. We don't need the West. The world is against us. There are different opinions, or the opposite opinions, but it's not. It would be very naive and too optimistic to just think that it's just a group of people that takes the entire country hostage. Unfortunately, not.
Absolutely, and that's what people fail to understand. I mean, this is, the problem with Russia goes back, I mean,
That's right.
centuries. This is just
Yeah.
what's in the
Yeah.
blood,
Yeah.
and it's just, I mean, if it was easy enough to put it on Putin or Brezhnev or I don't know, uh, you know, Lenin or Stalin, but I mean that it's always. But what is interesting, I mean, hopefully. As much as there is loyalty, they very quickly know how to turn on each other. So
Yes.
maybe if Putin allows someone next to him, then maybe they'll take care of that.
Yes.
And then,
Hopefully.
All right, Karina.
So you're going to come back,
I
right,
know,
Karina?
it is.
You're going to come back
Where?
at some point.
Karina, thank
To
you.
your podcast.
Okay,
Yes. To Russia? No.
Hey, everybody, if you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to subscribe and please visit our website, kremlinfile.com. This is a Bunker Crew Media production hosted by Olga Lautman and me, Monique Camarra, with executive producers Marley Clements, Jack Bryan, Grant DeSimone, Ben Brett, and Jordy Mycelis of Midas Media, with associate producers Ruby Franco and Sarah Metz. Theme music by Oreste Camarra. Sound editing and mixing by Joy Ellett. Subscribe to Kremlin File wherever you listen to podcasts.